But he came out on stage and he said, today, it was their big keynote. And so today we're going to introduce three products. We're going to introduce a new phone, a
Yes.
new music player, and a new internet communicator.
Oh
And
my
the crowd
gosh.
goes wild. Three new products from Apple. Indeed, it was one product. It was the iPhone.
Yeah.
So that was the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. And
Wow.
once he got through everything and we started to see how things were going, I'm like, why aren't we doing something like that in industrial automation? And indeed,
And we're live.
What's up, everybody? My name is Derek.
And my name is Casey, and we're here to bring you a new perspective.
This is Season 2, Episode 3 of the show where we talk about next-gen features and ignition, running on epic hardware.
Epic. So this week, we're actually welcoming Benson from Opto 22 to the stream, which you guys can see. Say hi. Say hi to Benson.
Welcome, Benson.
Yeah, welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
and
So,
I'm so excited to be here as well. Thank you for the invitation and the
of
opportunity
course.
to present with you guys. This is great.
Of course.
Absolutely.
I
Well,
guess we
for
could
anybody that
yeah,
doesn't know who you are, do you want to give an intro and
Yeah.
kind of what Opto does?
definitely.
Yeah, sure. My name is Benson Hoagland. I work at a company called Opto 22, and I've been here for about 28 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Seems gone by fast. So yeah, 1995, I came in, and before that, I was working with Opto products and had an opportunity to work at the company. And now my role here is vice president of product strategy and marketing. And yeah, it's been a heck of a ride, a lot of fun, and I'm
Nice.
very excited to be here to show you some of the stuff that we've been doing over all those 28 years,
Yeah,
and see if anybody is going to find some interest in it.
absolutely. Well, I know we do. You guys,
Definitely.
we're ignition developers, or I'm a prior ignition developer. You guys have a really good relationship with inductive automation, so
Hmm.
I think we're going to talk about some of that. And yeah, so does anybody have any questions for Benson before we get started?
Kitten says hi. Hi, Kitten. Derek is quiet.
I'm quiet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Is that a little better if you moved the boom in? And I know it's like not the most like, oh my gosh, you have to ask about the sounds, but I swear it changes every single time we stream. So I did.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure so that otherwise we would go the entire stream and could be absolutely silent. No one would say anything. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, cool. So do we just want to get right into the demo and?
Yeah, maybe we talk a little bit about our relationship with inductive. I've
Yeah.
known those guys for a long time. Travis, Kevin, Kent,
Mhm.
all a lot over on the system engineering side, and of
Sure.
course worked a lot with Christine and Dawn over there. And the cool thing about inductive is they're a company very much like Opto in many ways. And
Okay.
Opto's been in business for 50 years. So we've been making everything from, the company was founded upon the notion of a solid state relay. The founder of Opto was a co-inventor of the solid state relay. And so that's really where
Wow.
we got our start back in 1974. And, we've always kind of been structured differently. The way from a corporate standpoint, we're a very flat organization. We're not an Allen Bradley or Siemens, and we don't want to be.
Mhm.
We tend to be, try to be out in front, try to understand what's happening in the market, what problems are out there that people are trying to solve, and develop products to do so. And indeed, we're a privately held company, so it gives us a lot of latitude in how we approach, development of new products and how we approach the market in general. And the key thing about that is I'm an entrepreneur and engineer by heart, but
Mhm.
being at Opto allowed me to, to exercise that entrepreneurial spirit. They give me a lot of leash. Sometimes I fail miserably.
Oh no.
Other times we do well. And some of the products that we're going to talk about today is the GROOV Epic and GROOV Rio. And those, took a long time to bring to market. In fact, it was initially inspired by a presentation back in 2007 by none other than Steve Jobs himself, who came on stage. I don't know if you remember this, but or if you guys, or in college or wherever you were in 2007.
Oh
But
boy.
High
um,
school.
Yeah,
I
high
was in high
school. So there
school.
you
Yeah.
go. But he came out on stage and he said, today, it was their big keynote. And he said, today we're going to introduce three products. We're going to introduce a new phone, a
Yes.
new music player, and a new internet communicator.
Oh
And
my
the crowd
gosh.
goes wild. Three new products from Apple. Indeed, it was one product. It was the iPhone.
Yeah.
So that was the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. And
Wow.
once he got through everything and we started to see how things were going, I'm like, why aren't we doing something like that in industrial automation? And
Oh,
indeed, that
Yeah.
was really the kind of the genesis for what's possible. And indeed, what we're going to talk about today with Groove Epic and Groove Rio is, fast forward to where we are today,
Hmm.
and what some of the things that we did to try to build a platform that would allow you to run all kinds of different pieces of software, all kinds of different apps, and so on. And that's where that relationship with Inductive really started to come together. And I think my very dear friend Arlen Nipper, who I've known for 20 some odd years,
Wow.
he really brought us together. And this was kind of when he was really starting to bring MQTT into the industrial automation type applications. And a big pathway to getting there was Inductive, was the Ignition platform, his ability to build modules on an open platform like Inductive. And that's when we kind of got together and started learning more about Inductive's approach to market, how it aligned a lot with ours. It's some of it is bucking the status quo, right? Why are we doing the same thing over and over and over when if we put our heads around it, we'd probably do something really interesting and change the industry in some positive way. And I think we all know that the Ignition platform is exactly that. And
absolutely.
indeed, from our perspective, we're a hardware manufacturer. I'm in the factory at Opto 22 in Temecula, California. We're about an hour north of San Diego. And outside
Wow.
that window over there is our factory. We build everything here, and we
That's
design
awesome.
it. We don't do anything offshore. We do all of our own product design. We do all our own manufacturing, and of course, sales, service, product support. All that
Sure.
is out of this building. So again,
Wow.
very very like-minded in terms of how we operate our businesses. And so it was really serendipitous how all those pieces came together. And indeed, we were one of the first hardware manufacturers that belonged to what's now known as the onboard program, the notion of taking a piece of hardware and running Ignition on it. So we launched
Wow.
that product back in 2017 on one of our very first Groove products, something called the Groove Box. And and here we are today. And I can't wait to show you
Wow.
some of the cool things we're doing with Ignition and Ignition Edge and how they work together,
Yeah.
all underpinned by this technology called MQTT and Sparkplug B. So,
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, I know we've got a couple of comments here in chat. Wiz, welcome in. I know it's your first time chatting. That's awesome. Wiz said, like, because you were talking about the iPhone, right? And then the automation, the automation iPhone, like, sign me up, right? I mean, I have an Android, but but that would be pretty cool. And then Dwayne says that he thought you and Arlen were brothers. So.
oh, it's good for me. I don't know about Arlen, but
Oh no.
yeah. Arlen is, he's one of those very pure people, right? He's, at his core, he's an engineer,
Yep.
but he's passionate about what he does. He can't wait to share it with everybody. I mean, he open sourced MQTT. He open
Wow.
sourced Sparkplug B.
Yep.
It really is. It's an amazing relationship. And Arlen, I'll get to this a little later in the stream. But Arlen and I have been working really closely on some interesting projects. One of the largest ones is right there in the state of Indiana. Flexware's right just south of Flexware's headquarters. So that's been fun. It's all about energy monitoring, like I said. We'll talk about
Cool.
that more moving on. But
Sure.
and everybody at Inductive is just so much fun to work with. And I think that's kind of a key aspect is
Hmm.
if you're going to do something, why not do something fun? Then it doesn't feel like work. And you
Yeah.
can do all kinds of cool things together, and everybody's enjoying themselves. It's not just that daily grind of getting through the day or whatever, but to be actually invoke change in our industry in one way or another. So that's why it's fun to work with Inductive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love seeing all these different companies come in and be part of this community. It's
Yeah.
just one giant community just trying
Yeah.
to help each other, work together, network, and yeah. I mean, we met at ARC, and you were at you were at the inductive booth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just awesome to see everybody come together and just everybody's forward thinking like this.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And that's the thing is, and always trying to address that notion of, the art of the possible, right? What if we could do this? And I think we're getting there. There's inductives, and the ignition platform has gotten tremendous traction, as has our GROOV Epic and GROOV Rio. They're really designed to work, beautifully well together. And so hopefully I'm going to get a chance to show you guys all that.
yeah. Well, I never got a chance to work with an Opto, so I'm really excited to see this.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked, especially looking at your
Yeah.
setup you got here. Holy moly!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Look at this.
This is my COVID project.
Oh wow.
So when the pandemic hit,
Mhm.
that was a problem. If you're selling software, to some degree, you can provide some level of remote assistance and help people get started with the software, particularly with inductives. 2-hour free trial, download it in minutes, you're up and running.
Yep.
But with hardware, it's different, right? And to understand some of the benefits of that hardware is difficult to do if you can't see it. So
Right.
we all put our heads together and said, well, what if we could create an environment where we can get an opportunity to show some of those products, and some of those are sitting here right next to me. But I've got all kinds of camera demos or camera views, which I'll show you here in a minute, where I can switch
Nice.
between various cameras throughout my little studio here. But what was funny is that when the pandemic is here, I couldn't get out on the road and show people, all the great things about Opto and inductive working together. So we built this studio. And now all of our sales engineers have their own studios and their own,
Oh
home
wow.
offices or whatever. So it's really been, it's kind of changed the way that we do interact with customers and integrators and partners.
Mhm.
It's allowed us to still share ideas and really do things, and that's been really powerful. So I'm traveling a lot less, which is nice, because all this gear I'd have to pack up into my Pelican suitcases and
Oof.
get on an airplane. And nowadays
Yeah.
I can do a fair amount of that from here. So hopefully
Yeah, I
that
was
becomes
just
evident as I get through this.
yeah, I was just thinking like you're packing all this stuff, but like, do you think you can show more with this? Like, would you pack every single thing that was in this setup?
That's a great question, Derek. And at first, indeed, I was just taking my package, my road demo, if you will,
Sure.
and set that up. But now, I've got multiple demos and multiple ways the products are being using, and I'll cover that a couple in 2 different applications here. So yes, the answer to the question is it gives me a lot more flexibility. In fact, I think I'll go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then while
Maybe
you're
even
doing
not.
that, Dwayne said during COVID that he was matching loose socks, and then you built an awesome studio. And then Wiz, let's see, online training is great, but live demos and actually seeing it in action really helps, for sure.
And
Absolutely.
that's absolutely right. And sometimes seeing how the hardware interacts with the software in real time
Mhm.
is pretty exciting. And so indeed, this is one demo here. It's over my shoulder right here. So we got an Epic.
Whoa.
We got a Rio over here. We got a little HDMI display connected to the Epic. The Epic,
Wow.
it's like the smartphone and PLCs in the sense that it has a lot of software applications running on here, including HMI, the ignition software, Node-RED, a control program. It's still a PLC. And then over here, I've got some other PLCs that I'm using the ignition software to grab all that data and move it into the Epic, and then move it on its way up to MQTT servers or virtually anywhere I'd like to. So that's one of the demos, and I've got what I call my cooking cam, and that's this guy here.
I was really hoping we were gonna make cookies or something.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, some of our demos are a cookie factory, but yeah, so I've got my
Oh my
Epic
goodness.
here. This is set up also with a 4-module chassis. It goes all the way to 16 if you want, but kind of
Wow.
looks and feels like a modern PLC. I got a little door on here where I
Cool.
can get to my Ethernet ports and my HDMI cables and so on. Nice touch screen, which oddly enough, like, grab my phone out of my pocket. It's basically the same size screen as a smartphone, right on the front display.
Wow.
So allows me to get in there and look at I/O points, or interact with the system whichever way I want.
Sure.
And it's all web-based. So more on that in a moment, because really what I want to do is kind of start off, and switch my cam over to here, kind of start off with, start at ignition. I think a lot of your audience is, certainly Flexware and others are very familiar with the ignition product. So I think that's where I want to start, is
Sure.
actually a perspective screen that I have set up here. So I'm going to go into my browser, click on perspective, and I'm going to actually be logging into a public ignition server. This is in our DMZ here at Opto. So it does have a connection to the internet, but it's all secure. And I'll go ahead and log in here, and we'll also be able to show you guys how you can, anybody who's listening, can also log into this system. And indeed, and I'm actually going to switch over to this screen here, because it's the one I'm going to interact with. So
And then
this is ignition.
I'm so sorry, Benson. I just wanted to say, for those, if you want to click on that demo, you do have to copy paste it, because once it gets past the port, it's not actually a URL. And
Yeah,
that's
if
No
you-
worries. Or
sorry
here's
about
another
that.
thing.
Yeah.
You can actually scan the QR code that's on the screen right now.
Oh wow.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's even
Get to the
easier.
mobile interface. So
I think I
just
might
remember
try.
the user path is trial on Opto 22. And
Okay.
my guess is if anybody does log on, they're going to start interacting with the demo just the same as I am, but that's okay. So this is a very, very simple perspective screen. I am not a perspective expert by any stretch. And I've told Travis that and Kevin, and they're like, we got to get you into training. And I said, yeah, absolutely. But here's my turbine. And you can see this, again, a very simple screen. But what's cool is just from clicking here, I start my turbine. So, oh, somebody just turned it back off. Oh, somebody put it, yeah, people are already interacting with the demo.
Oh no, it wasn't me.
So that's okay. I'll go ahead and start it up. There you can see the turbine is starting. So
Oh my
from
gosh.
this isn't rocket science, right? I've got a perspective screen running on a server that's connected to my Epic, which then is sending a command through the Epic control program to turn on the turbine. So then you can see that in that lower screen there. And I can make the turbine run on real-time spot pricing. More on that later, but I've also got an Allen Bradley and Siemens PLC here. So real simple. I'm going to click on it. I can turn on the stack light. I can, for the AV PLC, I can turn on the stack light for the Siemens. And so far, you're probably not impressed. But here's the deal. Well, all of these different applications, including my Rio, which is running the Rio behind me is running a little PID program, also talking to another AV PLC. All that's working fine. But here's the thing. In this entire demo, this ignition gateway is not connected to to my systems directly, right? Let me show you how that works. I'm actually going to log into the gateway itself. And just to prove my theory out, I've actually got a Flexware shortcut here. So this is the ignition gateway, again, running into my DMZ, and this is with public access. And if I go into config, and of course I'm going to have to log in, so I'll do so. In that case, I'm going to log in as a developer. And I'm going to scroll down to device connections. There are none. I'm going to scroll down to OPC connections. The only one there is the OPC UA loopback, right? So this is standard in any ignition instance. That's the loopback for OPC. So any tags in a tag provider will automatically be available via OPC. The point is there's no connection between those directly. Indeed, what I'm doing is doing all of this through MQTT. Okay.
Whoa.
So, and that comes in a couple of different varieties, but if I go to our homepage here, I'll just go to Opto 22. We've got this kind of cool thing under products and IoT system architecture. And this is kind of the architecture. I've got a number of different devices that may be in the field. Some are behind me, some are in Australia, some are in Germany, so whatever. I can have all of those doing their own communications, running Ignition Edge, communicating to PLCs, doing its own control program, and then securely publishing that data into a broker, an MQTT server. And then this Ignition server here is the one it logged into, and that's in the DMZ. So the idea is that all of this facilitation of data moving back and forth is all over MQTT. What's more is that MQTT server is actually in Europe. It's in Germany.
Oh,
So
wow.
let me go
Wait,
back to
what?
this screen. I'm going to go back to the screen because I want to show you something. On this screen, I can click the red stack light. So 3, 2, 1, click. And it went off that
Oh my
fast.
gosh.
That's that's like
Do we have a
instant.
clap?
Crazy?
Do we have a clap
Yeah.
sound?
Oh, you know what I do? Let me see. Does it
That's
work?
awesome.
It works. You guys can't hear it, but I can. And so can they.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what's so cool is that, even though I'm facilitating all these comms are going halfway around the world and back,
Mhm.
it's very high performance. And
Wow.
what's more, and I'll probably say, and what's more, a lot more times, is that everything is 100% encrypted and authenticated. So, and that becomes really important because this device down beneath me here, this Epic that's behind me,
Mhm.
it's connected. And let me make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. That is connected to my corporate gateway. So this is what we call the IT network. So this yellow cable is connected to my IT network, which gives me a valid gateway to send my data over to the broker in Germany, the MQTT server. This other connection, that's an OT network connection, 100% private, all static IPs, typical kind of OT network, and generally in smaller applications. But the point is that these are 100% segmented from the IT network. So
Yeah.
this thing is actually doing a lot of gateway features as well. And I'll show you a couple of those features coming up. So now I can use Ignition Edge here, scan these PLCs in your traditional poll response, scan the PLC as fast as you can to get all the data into Ignition, and then I publish those changes up. But when I'm turning on that stack light, I'm initiating that command from the Ignition gateway in my DMZ. It sends the command to the broker. This Epic here consumes or subscribes to that change.
Mhm.
Ignition then sends it out to the PLC and turns on the stack light. So all of that happened literally in sub-second time.
That's
Yeah.
So
crazy.
it's secure and it's high performance, and it is absolutely one of the easiest ways to do what I love to talk about, and that is data democratization. How can you capture plant floor data
Mhm.
from existing brownfield systems or greenfield, doesn't matter, and pull that data in and democratize it in a way that others can start to consume it? Indeed, I've got another application here that I'll show you. I'll switch this back. We have the view. I showed you the OPC-UA loopback connector.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is because I happen to have another OPC-UA client piece of software running on this same gateway, this DMZ computer, server, I should say. And it's this application here, which I'll log into. I'm logging as a developer, but we'll also share this. You can also log into this guy. So now I've got two software applications that are getting all this data from these devices behind me and many others, but they're not directly connected to the hardware. They're not directly connected to the OT network. And that means that now this notion of democratization of data,
Mhm.
I can publish all my data up to a broker and allow anybody to kind of come in and, based on credentials and security and so on. But
Sure.
anybody can start grabbing that data. So if I look at the system architecture, I can see there that I've got, my Epic publishing data in, my Rio, I've got dozens of these things. I can have Canary come in. Canary's a historian. Rather than Canary, again, making a connection directly to the hardware, it can connect through the MQTT server. And they have a Spark-Plug-B connector for that. Other Ignition servers and so on. So I'm publishing data to my server.
Mhm.
Down here on Ignition, it's getting the data. And then it is, I've got this OPC client, which you see right here called GROOV, running on that same server, and I'm able to get all the data. So, sometimes I get all worked up on this, whole MQTT versus OPC UA debate. It's not a debate. They're complementary. These technologies work together. And that's sometimes, everybody loves a good fight, right? It's MQTT versus OPC. It's a showdown. It's not. Everything works together, and that's what's key, and it makes it much more secure. But the biggest thing is that notion of directly coupling software to hardware. We no longer need to do. We can decouple those and allow other applications with the right credentials to come in and get to the data. So that's pretty cool.
Well, and the
So-
IT folks, I mean, do you think MQTT, at ARC, cybersecurity was kind of the theme, I thought, a big theme.
Absolutely.
And so, do you think IT folks should know more about MQTT and its capabilities, and the segmented network and access control lists, and so that they know that their stuff is protected from the OT side?
Here's the thing, they do know.
Oh, they do
IT
know.
does know.
Oh.
IT understands technologies like middle-oriented. What is it? It's MOM. It's called MOM, but it's essentially this notion of pub-sub architectures, and it's basically this notion that the way to protect things is to make everything clients moving into one server that I got to protect. On all these devices, the firewall parts are closed. You can't get to these devices. They're all publishing outbound, and
Yeah.
IT loves that.
Yeah.
Second to that, these particular devices, in terms of Epic and Rio, and I'm actually going to log into one of these and show you all the tools that put this thing on the network and manage it are IT tools. So we're using DHCP, we're using DNS, and if you're an IT guy in the audience, you know what these are. OT audience is still kind of learning it, but all these tools, LDAP, certs, firewalls, all of it is already in the Epic. So IT has generally embraced this notion of this OT system like an Epic running on their network because they can manage it the way they manage other devices. And both Epic and Rio are based on a Yocto build of Linux. They are Linux devices.
Mm-hmm.
So all the tools for network management and user accounts, all that are the same tools that IT already uses. But what we've done is we tried to do, hopefully it becomes evident, we've tried to make those tools OT usable, right? So instead of having to have this massive amount of IT background or understanding all these pieces and different tools to get those networks going, we actually build them all into the Epic. Let's take a look. I'm going to go to about the same Epic that's right here in the screen beneath me. And I've got a shortcut here. And I'll log in. And there it is. It comes to a home page. So yeah, the Epic has a little web server, but it's 100% secure. You can see there, I've got a padlock. You never log into any website that doesn't have a padlock, because as soon as you send your credentials over the wire, anybody can see them. So that's called a man-in-the-middle attack. You don't want that. So you want to make sure that anytime you're talking to any website, particularly an industrial device like this, you have a secure connection. And it requires a username and password. So I'm going to go ahead and log into this device. And this is how you manage the hardware, right? So there's no command line, there's no other tools you have to download and install on a computer or anything like that. It's just this. In fact, if I switch over to this screen here, you can see that the screen is the same as what it is on the main system, or through a browser. So
I
whether
was going to ask if that was responsive. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's in fact, I can bring it up here on my phone and connect right to it. So we made everything mobile responsive right on the Epic. So it doesn't matter if you're using a phone, an iPad, or whatever. So the next part is really, how does the system get on the network and how do you create accounts? And it's pretty simple. It's like everything's fill in the blanks. So here's all my users. I can set up all kinds of different users with different rights to get to different parts of the applications and so on. But these are local accounts. These are accounts that are literally on the Epic. But there may be times when you want to actually manage who has access to this hardware centrally. Here's another place where IT loves this, LDAP. LDAP is a lightweight directory access protocol. Essentially, in simpler terms, it is what Microsoft Active Directory uses. So when you're in your plant or at home, or maybe not at home, but when you're at your corporate plant or whatever, and you log in with your computer with your Active Directory account, it's essentially using LDAP. So the accounts are managed by IT. So if you had an employee, a rogue employee that says, I'm out of here, you wouldn't want to have all their credentials still in devices. So you centrally manage it, and if that employee leaves, you turn off that account, boom, they can't get into anything.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. And I do have this set up with our LDAP server here at Opto, so I can actually use my Opto 22 credentials to log into the device as well. But there's more.
Good. I'm loving it.
Yeah,
the security
so cool.
is absolutely paramount. I mean, I can't overstate. There's no way I could overstate how important cybersecurity is, especially today. And indeed, that has a lot to do with certificates, about encryption, about account management, but also about firewalls. The problem with the PLCs, there's nothing wrong with these PLCs. They're kind of the flip phone, if we're going to use a smartphone analogy. They're really, really good at what they do, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But they're not very good at security. Indeed, that you can, if you're on that network, you can get to that AB or Siemens PLC
Mhm.
pretty easily. So, the notion of having it protected by this EPIC means that we're protecting those PLCs. But in this case, I want to make sure that I'm also protecting the EPIC. And that's what the firewall's for. So now I've got a full-on firewall, the same one you might find on your router at home or on a corporate router,
Mhm.
but this is a device firewall. So I can
Gotcha.
really clamp this thing down and make sure that nobody can get to it unless they have the proper credentials and the proper encryption and so on. So it
Wow.
becomes a secure gateway. And getting it back to the smartphone analogy, yep, it's a PLC, yep, it's an HMI, but it's also a secure gateway. So now I can
Nice.
set this thing up to be a secure device and protect all the devices over on the other network interface. Wait, Benson, other network interface? What are you talking about? Well, indeed, there are multiple network interfaces on the device. So it's like a dual homed, actually, it's a quad homed device. And I can see that right in the firewall. So I can be very granular on which interfaces I allow any given traffic. And the networking is actually pretty cool. Because if I come back over here to network and take a look at its status, I can see exactly how my network is set up. This is the Ethernet 0. It's connected to the PLCs with a
Okay.
static IP address. The other network interfaces is connected to my corporate LAN, so it got a DHCP address.
Mhm.
I'm clearly using DNS to get to the device,
Mhm.
and that is my valid gateway to get out to, obviously our own gateway here, and then finally to the internet. But no path back in,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's not all. There's also
Wow.
Wi-Fi. So the Wi-Fi adapter, you can put a USB adapter you stick in there. You got Wi-Fi, and finally VPN.
Oh my
One of the
gosh.
biggest challenges
Wow.
of the pandemic was what? I can't go into a plant. I can't access some device from home.
Mhm.
And now you can go buy a couple of this and that and stick them in and little VPN routers and whatnot, and hopefully get there. And good luck getting that through IT. But what if I could put the VPN functionality right into the device? And we did. So now it's a VPN client that goes and connects to a VPN server and stays online. So with the proper credentials, I can log in on my VPN client on my computer and then connect directly to this device. I can do firmware uploads or firmware downloads. I can change programs. I can do it on the right accounts and right authentication. So this
Wow.
notion
Whoa.
of being able to manage this device from anywhere is very, very simple.
So
That's-
COVID was kind of a source of innovation. I mean, yeah, this is awesome.
You're right on the money, Derek. Not only building a studio, which
Yeah.
is more of a marketing thing, but yeah, indeed, it drove a lot of the innovation for Opto over the past several years to address what? We're not just going to do products because we can. We're going to do it because we want to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And indeed, we saw many of these problems, particularly through the pandemic, especially with remote access, cybersecurity, data democratization. Those things were really important to people, and they needed to solve those problems, but it was difficult to solve it with existing technologies. So what we try to do is not only solve them with new technology, but also protect those unprotected systems the best that we could. So go ahead. You have a question, Casey?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt. We do have a
I know,
couple
I
of
get on a
questions.
run
No,
and
it's
boom.
fine. I know we got a few questions from Kitten, and it looks like, let's see, we have Opto Renee, welcome in, and the Bald Geek, which I see you tried sharing a link. I swear I just turned on so links could be shared, so I apologize. Apparently it's not working. It's a mod. Yeah, it's a modding thing, but usually, yeah. So I apologize about that. You can whisper to either Derek or I, and we could share it for you. But so, do you want me to ask the questions that Kitten asked?
Yeah.
Is that
Oh.
cool? Okay. So.
Oh, I thought you were asking
Well, I'm asking
if I
both.
wanted to ask. Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
no, Derek. Why don't you do it?
Okay, Kitten Poof says, I have a couple questions on the Epic. Can you speak to the hardware ratings on the I/O? Meaning electrically, what are the I/O limitations? AC, DC, discrete, analog. Trying to understand where this hardware might fit into the standard PLC automation infrastructure. Can you speak to some real-world applications of this hardware?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a controller.
Hmm.
So, Opto's known for its I/O. So the I/O that goes on the backplane covers just about anything you can think of: serial, CAN, energy monitoring, and then if time permits, I'll talk about that. And of course, analog and digital inputs and outputs: 4 to 20, 0 to 10s, thermistors, but you name it. Our business is I/O, so we know that exceedingly well, and we have a broad library of I/O modules.
Hmm.
In fact, even the GROOV Epic works with I/O modules we developed back in the 90s. So we make everything backward compatible.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So there's a lot of
Whoa.
it out there.
Wow.
I think at last count, we were 110 million I/O points out there in the world today. So in
Whoa.
terms of applications it works with, you name it. I
So an
mean,
Opto
obviously,
retrofit might be way more cost effective in, 10, whenever you want to upgrade, 10,
yeah,
20
sure.
years.
You can
Yeah.
just throw an Epic in front of it, and if you want to secure everything, of course, and talk to other devices. But yeah, here's the problem though. Our I/O is guaranteed for life. If it ever fails, we replace it
Life?
Be- for life
Oh my god.
because we
Wow.
can. It doesn't fail, so it's guaranteed for life.
I can hear the
And
challenge
that's
accepted. I can hear it, but
right.
it's
And
chiming
that
in.
could be somewhat of a problem because,
Sure.
from a business standpoint, because, we'd love to sell more I/O and more controllers and whatnot. But if the stuff they have working doesn't fail, and it doesn't, then there's not really an impetus to, replace it. But now we can, take, say, just an Epic without any I/O, place it in front of existing systems, secure them, and so on. And that's really where we're going to get to the next part, which is this notion of, ignition running on the edge, right? One of the
Yeah.
reasons we're all here. So, the I/O is all there. And whoever asked the question might enjoy this. If I go in and click on a given module, this is an output DC sourcing module. I can see all the data right this is from the Epic behind me, or the one in the screen below. And even the wiring diagrams are in there.
Oh my
What?
gosh.
All the
Oh my
documentation
goodness.
for these devices and all the I/O modules it supports are all in the system. So you don't
That's
have to
awesome.
go out to the web or download a data sheet or whatever. They're all right there. In fact, one of my I/O modules on this backplane is what we call the multifunction module. This one is software configurable to be any channel you want. I'm going to click on one of these, and it's I can go to configure, and I can give it a name. Oh, let's see if I can get in the thing. Name, and then I come into here and I select from this list what I want that I/O module to be. Software configurable I/O on
Whoa.
this one card. And we also do that with this Rio, this little Rio that's next to me. I'm not even sure we're going to get to Rio in this call or in this stream, but yeah, it's super simple. I come in here and I say, let's make that a switch powered input. I can say, and I also wanted to do counting, or I can do whatever. All that is configured right into here. And then this public access is the data democratization. It's saying, I'm going to make this I/O point available via OPC, via MQTT, via REST, REST interface for you developers who might be on the stream.
Can you
All
make
of
the
that
counter
is-
a tag? Sorry. Can you make the
Yeah.
counter a tag that's available to maintenance folks? They want to know how many
Absolutely.
times something opened or closed. Yeah.
Now, with that checked,
Nice.
I'm actually going to get two metrics off this I/O channel: its state and how many times it's gone on or off. I can even latch on these things. So,
Oh.
the thing about PLC, sometimes everybody wants to know what scan time is because you don't want to miss an event like pressing a button.
Mhm.
Well, all of our I/O, all of our digital I/O, it can be latched. That means if it
Oh,
ever goes
nice.
high at the I/O module, we'll latch it in memory so that you can actually read the latches to see if it ever did occur. Just some of the things
Cool.
that makes these products a little bit different than
And it looks like you
your
can do off
traditional
as
stuff.
well. So if you want to see every time it unlatched or
Absolutely.
closed, yeah. Wow.
Correct. So the I/O is pretty powerful, but here's something. There's more. Controller. If you go buy a PLC today,
Mhm.
you get a PLC. You get a piece of hardware. You also, and in many cases, have to pay for the programming software. You don't have to with this one. But what's more, I keep saying that, you get to choose how you want to program it. So we've
Oh,
had Pack Control. This is a flowchart-based programming language we've had for 30 years. It's all over the world. but it's flowchart based. It's not, it's not for everybody. It's really terrific software, but it's not for everybody. Some people want to program in ladder or structured text or whatever. So you can choose CodeSys. So it's one of the few PLCs on the market where you get to choose what software you're most familiar with to develop your application. Now, this is the real-time control program that's running on this, not all the other software that's on there. So the control engine gets the real-time thread from the Linux OS, and it runs as a PLC. Then we got other tools on there. The GROOV, which is the local HMI, so I can get in there, and again, it's all web-based, it's all responsive. I can, again, turn on the PLC. Now, this is the local HMI, and if you look closely, the screen I have up in my browser is exactly the same screen that's on the HDMI monitor that's connected to the Epic. So all web-based, all I need is a standard HDMI monitor. I don't have to buy some special, IPC or anything like that. It goes right to the Epic and serves up the pages. So all that's in there. I can use this to go get API calls, to get the weather. You can build all kinds of screens in here. Well, how do I get the weather or spot price? How do I do all that? That's another tool that's on the device, and it's called Node-RED. Node-RED is an open source tool. You can download this from node-red.org and run it on your PC or Raspberry Pi, but we embed it right into the Epic. And then you get all those security features, the accounts, the secure connections, the certs, project management, all of that is right in your Node-RED editor. But I open up the editor. Sorry?
That's open source, even like in a commercial. There's no license or anything. That's awesome.
The only license you'll pay for anything running on Epic is Ignition, because we don't know how somebody wants to use Ignition. So, whether it's Ignition Edge or full Ignition, more on that in a moment. Cool. But yeah, this is just a simple Node-RED editor. Then this particular flow goes out and gets the real-time spot price from Cal ISO on a 5-minute interval. And this is actually being used in applications today at wind farms. So they'll go and get that price and then make a determination based on that price, whether it's even whether running the turbine will even make money.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about actually doing control based on external information, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Same thing for getting the weather. Say every time that turbine goes on and off, I get a text message. That's done with this flow.
We should blow his phone up.
Crazy in the chat.
I'm about to go ham on that website now.
Right.
On the demo.
So it's just another tool, right? And as I like to recite from Steve Jobs himself, he says technology is nothing. It's really nothing. What's important is that you have faith in people, right? And if you give them tools, they'll do wonderful things with them. Ignition or inductive feels the same way. Give them the right tools and unleash the creativity of engineers. That's what we try to do here. Tools are just tools. They either work or they don't. So we try to make them work really, really well and be able to manage those in any way you want. Same thing with the data service, OPC UA, MQTT, Sparkplug or strings. All of that is configured just by these point and click templates, so I can share data with other systems elegantly. So even though I'm using MQTT in my demos, I have OPC turned on as well. So if some application wants to come and get the data out of the Epic via standard OPC UA, terrific. Both are working simultaneously. It's not an either or proposition, as some will make you believe. So that's I really need to get to the Ignition, because that's really the exciting part here.
No, I love this. We do a lot of Ignition on here, and I've been really excited for people to learn about Opto. And I don't know, has anybody worked with Opto 22 products? Say something in the chat. But like I said, I've never had the opportunity. And as you're going through this in my head, I'm like, I wish I could. I've worked with the PLCs for a little bit, Omron and other things, but really wish I could have worked with this stuff.
Well, Epic's been out since 2018, so we're having in May will be its 5th anniversary, and but it was it's important to know that what we built with Epic, leverages that 45 prior years of technology that we baked into this product. So the I/O circuitry, all that stuff is decades old. Decades old is an odd way of putting it, but it's we're very good at I/O. So really, it's like we're really good at that part. Let's put technology on top that makes it do everything I've been saying. Democratize the data, make it secure, make it easy to use. So that's essentially what's done here. And that's what we did with Ignition. We saw incredible value with Ignition running at the edge. And the reason for that is numerous ones. It's probably pretty obvious in applications like water, wastewater, oil and gas, where you got a lot of remote, geographically dispersed assets. And I don't want to pull those assets from some main SCADA system. I want to do the polling at the edge and then publish the data up to the SCADA system. That's exactly why Arlen created MQTT. That's the exact problem he was trying to solve. Back in those days, in 1999, when he invented MQTT with Dr. Andy Stanford Clark, that's what they were trying to accomplish. They were using VSATs and other kind of modem technologies and so on, and it became very difficult to poll 1,000 devices, let's say, in the field. But when you publish from the field back to SCADA, everything works. And it's all very efficient payloads. As you can see, when I was turning on stack lights and stuff, it happens so fast. It's because it's compressed. That's very light payloads. There's so many advantages to MQTT. I could spend an hour on just MQTT, honestly. But let's go ahead and open up Ignition Edge, kind of show you what it looks like. And I showed you on the main gateway, we had no device connections, but indeed here we do. Right? So again, log in, it's all 100% secure. All that's taken care of for you. You don't have to, open up your open SSL tools and create certs and manage account, all of it's built in. So here I go to device connections, and indeed I've got my AB PLC, my Siemens PLC, and a driver to the pack control strategy, the control program that has all these tags. That. And then last is down here on MQTT transmission. I simply point it to a server. As I promised, this server is in the EU. It's in Germany, and it is a HiveMQ server. There it is. But what's also cool is I got a good buddy of mine, Jason Hamlin. I hope I can talk about this, but he's been doing a bunch of cool stuff with Ignition and Cloud SCADA and so on. So I'm actually taking my data and sending it to his broker simultaneously. So now all the data is still at the edge, single source of truth. I've got all my data, and you just tell me where I'm going to point it to. And I don't have to worry about who's consuming it. I don't have to worry about any of that.
He doesn't need access to your network or your.
Not at all. Not at all. I wouldn't give it to him. Dear friend, there's no way I'm going
Of course.
to give him access to this. So that's really the configurations within Ignition Edge. Is a couple of device connections and the MQTT transmission, and I can do all of these amazing things right at the edge. So really, when you put the combination of Ignition Edge along with the full Ignition Gateway, you can do some pretty amazing things. Yes, there's some other tools like Gateway Network. That's another option that Inductive has had for some time, but since the advent of MQTT, it's a lot easier, and in terms of scale, it's tremendous. And we have millions of tags that are going through MQTT brokers for applications like this. So one of the things I'm going to show you is back here on GROOV Manage. One of the things I talked about in the network was that VPN connection, right? I'm going to go back to that VPN connection, because you might think that with Ignition and with a control program and a bunch of process variables, that's all you can really do. But indeed, you can do more. Here's an example.
Oh no.
There's more. Yeah. So here's an example where in the device, in the Epic and the Rio, full RESTful API. And that means I can actually access a lot of stuff that I have right here, not process variables, but ways of interacting with the device itself through these REST APIs. Let me show you. I'm going to go back to the perspective screen, and I have something here called remote access. I click on that, and indeed at this moment, you saw on my other screen, I'm going to switch screens on you. I can see my VPN is connected. But what if I want to turn the VPN off? I don't want any of it, and I only want to turn on the VPN only when I need to access the device to maybe do an upgrade or do something else to access the device. I can actually do that from the Ignition Gateway. So check this out. I'm going to click this off. I just sent a command from the main gateway back to the Epic to turn off the VPN. And it's breaking down the connection there, disconnected.
Nice.
So now think of, I can manage I can manage access to my devices from Ignition, right? So
Whoa.
now, and why does that matter? Well, one, that may be your only interface. So you can use Ignition to turn on and off or port redirects and so on. Let me go back to this thing, go ahead and enable the VPN. And once I've done that, guess what I get? I get a full alarm history. So now I know who did it, when
Yep.
they did it, if they left it on. All of that is all in my alarm logs on my full gateway. So
Wow.
that's pretty cool. But what if, just let's say, that I actually need to access the PLC?
Mhm.
Remember, it's on its own protected network. Can't get to it. We do have a feature called port redirect. It's basically like conduits and zoning and conduits you read about with cybersecurity. And what that allows me to do is, let me come into a new tab here, and I'm going to attempt to connect to the Allen Bradley PLC. Right there, PLC homepage. It's going to fail. It's not going to go because I haven't turned it on yet. So let me go back
Oh.
over here and go back to my remote access and say, you know what, for a very short period of time, I want to make access to the PLC available. I click it on. Let's screen back over to this tab. And oh, there it goes. Almost had a demo go awry there.
Oh no.
I'm actually on the unsecure homepage of the Allen Bradley PLC, but it's tunneled, and all of that
What?
happened over MQTT. Pretty
Oh.
amazing stuff. So
So what's the configuration look like for that? Is it just a couple of checkboxes, or is the configuration for
so
these pipes and conduits pretty?
so happy you asked.
Oh, good. There's more.
Oh
Because
no.
we work with a lot of partners, and one of our partners actually put together this tool right here in the Ignition Gateway. It's called
Oh,
Opto 22 GROOV,
cool.
and in here I can
Oh.
actually set up everything that I need to do the port redirects. So in this case, it is fill in the blanks. I've got a lot of different rules for different interfaces, VPN, IT LAN, OT LAN, whatever, and all of them are set up here. And when I turn them true, they enact, make the API call, turn on that port redirect, or turn on and off VPN. Pretty
That's
cool.
awesome. I love that.
Nice.
So again, kind of getting back to that idea of a smartphone. Let's put a lot of software, a lot of capabilities in. You don't need to use them all, but they're there.
Access.
Yes. And every single Epic that goes out the door includes Ignition pre-installed, pre-configured, ready to literally just click a button and start it up. And you can use Ignition Edge or full Ignition. We have customers doing both. And full Ignition, they're doing some really cool stuff. You can put databases on this thing. It's got shell access, so I can actually get to the OS itself. I can run
Nice.
Python scripts. I can run C applications. I can
Oh my gosh.
whatever you want
Wow.
to dream up. Again, tools for engineers to let them, create and do amazing things. So that's just another example.
And we did
We've
have
got
a
another.
comment. Oh, I'm so
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I hate
please.
just busting in.
Got it,
Yeah. So the Bald Geek in chat said, so just like Node Red, so the ignition that is running on the Epic is pure. So Opto, they said that Opto doesn't tweak it in any way.
That's right.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
right.
the same. They wanted so everybody knows, which I think that's
Yeah,
good to know.
It's the only
sure.
difference is, let's say you go run down and buy an IPC, an industrial PC,
Mhm.
and you get Ignition. Hey, you can install Ignition on the IPC if it's Windows or whatever. And you got to go through some, the install is relatively straightforward, but the configuration and security and all that can be a little challenging. With this, we've already pre-installed it. We've already put the wrapper around it. And so it's still pure Ignition, and it's pure Node-RED, and it's pure CodeSys. We didn't take CodeSys and do our own version of it. We have a lot of manufacturers that do that. We don't. We keep it pure. So if you did create an application for CodeSys
Mm-hmm.
and ran it on some other device and said, "Oh, could I run that on Epic?" Chances are you can.
That's awesome.
That's
Cool.
cool.
So what if you wanted to upgrade Ignition? Because if it comes with .20 and 25's out now, or 26, whatever we're up to.
So that's all done. So we have we have to test everything to make sure everything works together, just like your iPhone, right? So you're going to update your iPhone firmware or whatever. We do the same thing here. We can back it up, we can restore it, and we can update it. So when a new version of Ignition comes out, we grab it, we run it through QA, we put it all in the corner, and once we know everything is working as we expect, then we do a firmware turn, And then right here is how you can update the system. You can do it remotely, you can do it locally, whatever you want. What's more is we take the entire firmware, we put it on the device in its own partition, its update partition. So your system is still running while you're going through the upgrade process.
Oh, wow.
And when you're ready, you click the button and then it basically copies everything over to the active partition, and boom, you're up and running again.
That's awesome.
And so then,
So do you upload a file here,
I was just
or
gonna
does
ask.
it actually go? Does it go out to Ignition and say, "I want .26"? That's what I thought you were gonna
No.
say, and I was like, "What?"
No,
That's
no,
crazy.
we're not. One of the things that, let's be honest, there's a ton of Epics out there that are not connected to the internet, right? So
Sure.
our device does not phone home for anything.
Okay.
So, and that's important. There's no reason to do that. So it never, we don't know how many Epics are out there or anything like that. It's all, it's all designed to run on completely air gap networks if that's what you need.
Sure.
There are some tools that require internet access, like if you want to get a new node red flow or whatever, then you might need internet access for that. But we have ways around that too. But no, so it's basically all in the firmware that gets uploaded to the device.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was really surprised if it was going to go out to Ignition and just do everything for you. That's why I was wondering.
Well, when the market's ready for that kind of functionality, it's super easy for us to do. And we do have a number of methods. For example, if a customer was having some difficulty, our product support team has a pretty cool tool that's all initiated from the customer that's called Info and Help. There's the REST APIs, Opto support RSS. If you do have a valid gateway to the internet, our support, you can generate a ticket here, it'll connect, and our support team can get into your system and help you through any trouble.
Oh,
Wow.
gosh.
Remote assistance. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Thank you.
That's like,
There's
yeah.
a ton more in here that I couldn't possibly cover. But we have a lot of videos. We have a training website, very similar to Inductive's. You log in, it's all free. All the different softwares on there, CodeSys, Node-RED, Pack Control, Ignition, all that's up on our training site. So you can get in there, you can get an understanding of how things work and how to configure stuff, all free. And then we also offer factory training here at Opto. In fact, we just started it back up after the pandemic. The same as Inductive, they just started theirs back up. But that means coming to sunny Temecula. But the cool thing is we can maybe do a sneak peek here. We are working with Flexware for you guys to actually host a training in Indiana. Lots to do there. We got a lot of work. No announcements yet, but know that we are working with Flexware on that.
Yep. We're
Very
excited.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's some projects we're doing in the state of Indiana now that are state funded by the state of Indiana for small and medium-sized businesses, where they're literally getting a system from Opto with Ignition on it. The state's paying for it, and the primary purpose is to help people understand energy use within their manufacturing facilities. All that data moves up to AWS. It's a partnership with AWS as well. And it all goes into the cloud, all on site-wise using Cirrus Link modules, Arlen's company, Ignition, Opto. And why I bring this up, because these are people who are just getting started with this whole idea of smart factory, Industry 4.0, digital transformation, pick whatever moniker you want. But to help Indian manufacturers take that first step, the state is actually helping them. And so we've already got several dozen manufacturers in Indiana that has this equipment along with Ignition in their plants today. And once they have this, they can do whatever they want with it. It's not just for energy monitoring. It's just, that was the first task. It's like any digital transformation project. Pick something small, do it quickly, get some value out of that application, and then move on to the next thing, and then the next thing. And before you know it, exactly. And that's why, we love working with the state, because they get that. They understand that Indiana is a manufacturing powerhouse among the 50 states, and they want to continue that. So That's one. They could have taken these dollars that they've just allocated to
Hmm.
this program, and they could have put in street lights or parking meters or whatever. But
Yeah.
instead, the state of Indiana said, no, no, no. What we want to do is move the manufacturing industry in Indiana forward. How do we do that? We help them put tools in the hands of these small and medium-sized businesses and let them run with it. Get a lot of support, obviously, in the beginning. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty exciting.
Well, I'm glad it's with your product because this
Oh,
is
so am I.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Oh my gosh,
Wow.
this was a mind blow. There's so much in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
I
so
feel like we
thankfully
could
you
do a
guys are
3-hour
recording
stream.
this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is recorded. It'll be on YouTube if you missed the first half or you had to go and you missed some. But wow.
Yeah, we covered a lot
Is
of
there
ground.
anything else you want to
Oh,
show
yeah.
or? Oh yeah.
Oh,
he
I
said-
can go on and on.
Oh.
I keep talking, and I won't go on and on, but I will make one point. I'm going to switch back to my cooking cam here, and actually move my Epic out of the way. This is called a Rio. Remember when I showed you that multifunction module on the Epic, and I could get in there and configure the software channels?
Mhm.
This does the same thing. It's PoE powered. You can wire in anything you want, configure the signals as you desire. There's over 200,000 different unique I/O possibilities with a single Rio, and we have a version that runs Ignition Edge.
Oh my gosh.
Holy
Yeah.
PoE powered?
moly.
It's PoE
Is-
powered.
Is anybody
fact-
else doing that?
You don't see that much in industrial. So
I've never heard of that.
And it's an
that's
option.
Crazy.
you don't
Yeah,
have to use
that's awesome.
PoE, but you can go line powered if you want. But PoE, here's an example of what we are doing in the state of Indiana. This is also a Rio, but a Rio EMU. EMU is Energy Monitoring Unit. It's designed to take big fat CTs like this, wire them onto a load. CT is a 333 millivolt signal that comes in.
Mhm.
Put 3 CTs on a big motor or distribution panel, whatever, and then drop a voltage line on up to 600 volts directly to the top of this device. You don't need a PT or a potential transformer or anything like that. And this will automatically generate up to 64 channels of data for all 3 phases plus totals. So, and both KW and KWH. So you're not only getting real-time power
Whoa.
in an instant, but you're also getting consumption over time. What's more is it's all MQTT, OPC, all that other stuff that we talked about on Epic. But in this case, for the state of Indiana, and for other projects we're doing, including in this building, we're pushing that data back to a main Epic.
Mhm.
It's this one right here. It's actually a live unit, so I gotta be careful I don't unplug it.
Oh no.
But this device here is just an Epic on what we call a zero chassis, meaning there's no I/O on it. You can add I/O if you want, but it's no I/O there. And it's collecting all of those energy data from various loads, bringing them into the system, and then sending them up to AWS. That is the Indiana project. This one does have an HDMI monitor. So this screen you see over my shoulder
Mhm.
is live energy data for 2 of our big compressors. Like I said, we make everything here. And so you
Sure.
need compressed air to do that. So we've got all of our compressors on there and the main energy feed that comes in from the utility. So we are seeing in real time what the data is. And I'll just poke back up to this guy here and show you. Oh, this got one of my things is offline. I must have moved a cable. But this is the power of the building.
Wait, do you want to
We're
switch your
using-
scene too?
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
I appreciate that. I told you if I needed to
No,
do
I
that,
know.
so thank you, Casey. But yeah, this is 264 kilowatts is what this building, this manufacturing, we're 160,000 square foot facility here. That's how much power we're using at this moment. And in this case, we're staging our compressors. And so this one is on right now, and it's running about 34 kW. And we've used 716 kWh today.
Whoa.
And I can see my power factor, I can see everything. So again, democratization of data, even from energy loads. So whether it's analog, digital, whatever, we can do the same thing with energy. So with that, I'll kind of stop. Otherwise, I'll be going
What-
on to the
One
wee
more
hours.
thing.
Yes, sir.
I saw somewhere that there's some kind of touch feature on your I/O. Is that
There
true?
is, yeah. So essentially, the way that works,
know
it's
if
kind
I
of hard
read
to
it.
reach over there. But yeah, if I switch to the other screen, Right now, it is showing the Groove view, but yes, you can actually press your finger on the top of a module. It'll wake up the screen and show, if you're logged in. Again, everything's secure. So if you're logged in through the front panel, you can touch the module, and it'll show that I/O the same I showed you in the browser, with all the lights blinking and everything like that. So you can actually troubleshoot the device. Yeah, it's all on the device itself. So you can troubleshoot the I/O right from. You don't have to pull out a laptop and hose it up to the system. If you have the credentials, you can log in through the front screen and actually do most of what I showed you here, including seeing the wiring diagrams. So we have some panel shops that do exactly that. They bring the Epic up, they give it an account. And by the way, there is no default accounts on these things. You must create a username and password to access the device. So there's no chance you're going to go out on the internet and say, oh, Groove Epic, what's the default username and password? And I'll go hack my way around. Not possible. So once you log in, then you can use, the panel shops will literally power up the Epic, create an account, and start landing all their instrumentation, and actually through the front screen can configure those I/O channels, confirm that, digital outputs are firing, that your 4 to 20 is coming in, all of that, without pulling out a laptop.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why I wanted to bring it up real quick before we. There's always one more.
Great question.
Yeah, I think I read that, but
wow,
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is super cool. It's a lot to take in.
Can you get the Groove Rio into Ignition's OPC server, or do you specifically need an Edge version? Somebody
Geek answered it.
Says, yeah, Rio and Epic have native OPC UAA server built in.
They do.
Yep.
And just a quick side note on OPC. That was invented in 1996, and one of the champion of that development was Microsoft. Microsoft wanted to find a way that you could use a Windows operating system to communicate with industrial devices. So they basically took their printer driver model and turned it into what we now call OPC, but back then it was called OLE for process control. So it was Microsoft and 4 other companies that got together to develop that spec, and Opto was one of them. So we wrote this on OPC.
That's awesome.
And the other 3 companies are no longer in business, but we're still hammering it out. But that was in 1996 to solve a given problem at the time. And MQTT solves the problems of today. So there are different problems. This is 20, almost 30 years ago. So, or 25 years ago, whatever my math is. The point is that you create technology, or you create applications or software that solves a problem at a given time. And at that time, it was about getting plant floor devices into a Windows OS. Today, we need to get plant floor data to a lot of other places other than a Windows OS. That's where MQTT really, really shines. So, we got OPC UA, and that doesn't require Windows OS. But this notion of being able to move data freely wherever it needs to go and not being directly coupled, that's what's critical, and that's what's needed in today's applications. So I can look at a fleet of factories, I can look at a fleet of remote devices, and I'm going to do all that very efficiently, I'm going to do it very quickly, and 100% securely. Difficult to do with OPC UA. I'm not saying you can't do it, because you can't, but if you want to do it quickly, simply, and manage it, you're probably going to select MQTT for that. Again, choose the right tool for the job. I always say that. You find the right, what's the problem? Let's identify the problem, and then let's start saying, okay, now what kind of software or what kind of technologies can I apply to solve that problem? And you've got Node-RED on here, you got CodeSys, you got all these different tools. I'm showing them all working together, but there's a lot of our customers that don't use all those tools. But
well, I've personally seen, and Casey's working on this project now, the power of MQTT with the American Water Project. You can check it out. We got a firebrand with Inductive last year for it, and it's just massive. We're feeding all this data from 600, hundreds of SCADA implementations up to this one enterprise portal, and now we're feeding that data into Amazon QuickSight and all this other places. So definitely hear what you're talking about here.
Right on the money.
A lot of power.
And from my main gateway, I'm sending data to AWS, to Azure, and now Snowflake. Snowflake is another cloud provider in the data side, data mesh side.
Okay.
Simultaneously, my core data, that's the energy in this building, is sending out data to multiple cloud platforms all at once. So I don't have to commit to one platform. Or if I decide I don't like AWS anymore, I now like Azure,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to now move everything to Snowflake, no changes on my end. No changes on my end. I just publish them to the broker. Those cloud applications grab that data and do something interesting with them.
That's awesome. Cool.
That's
All right.
that's
Well,
crazy. It's super
yeah,
nice
no, this
too.
was man, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Does anybody
definitely.
have
The
any
opportunity.
questions? Yeah, definitely. If nobody has any questions, if there isn't one more, we could wrap this up. I think we're 15 minutes over, so appreciate your time.
Which is totally
Yeah,
fine.
sorry for going long.
No,
Yeah.
you are just
No,
fine.
yeah. No, that's awesome. We could have done this for 3 hours and I'd be fine with it.
For sure.
5 o'clock, people start dropping off though. So
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you drop my share there, and I'll turn my video back on, and
okay.
we can wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, thank
we
you
go.
guys so much for the opportunity. We love working with Flexware. You guys are top shelf. You know what you're doing. You got great relationships with your customers. And I love how you guys do embrace new technologies to solve customer problems. That's such a key thing today. You know, I don't want to disparage anybody, but sometimes you do run into some integrators that just boilerplate it. They just rubber stamp the same thing over and over. And you guys always try to take a fresh approach and say, well, what's happening in the market today? Which tools, which kind of technologies can help solve customer problems? And so we appreciate that. We really do.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
It was fun, guys. Thanks for doing this with me, and maybe we'll do another one sometime.
Hey,
Make it a
I'd be
little more
down.
Have you
fun
on
for you.
anytime.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, just
Great.
double check one more time. We don't have any questions. No, I think we're good. Should we go ahead and do our little outro, Derek?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, to start, we want to thank Benson, of course, which I know Derek kind of did. So thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us. For everybody in chat, big thank you to everyone that tuned in for sure. Definitely be sure to check out the YouTube channel, which Derek will link in our socials or however he does it, for other content as well as all of our past streams. That's where we put them because Twitch, they kind of disappear after a little while. And then if you enjoyed watching us today, definitely don't forget to hit that follow button. It's free.
Please follow.
Please follow. It's totally free. You'll get notifications when we go live. You can also turn those off in your settings. We would really appreciate it. And as a reminder, for you guys to tune into our next stream, which will be on April 27th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
I think that sounds good. So until then, keep on developing.
Keep on developing.
Right?
Yep.
Bye.
Live the dream.
All right.
Right?
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.